Hello and welcome. This is Atul Wadkar, your instructor. In the last session, we have discussed about the decision control statements like if statement, if else statement, and if, elif, else kind of structure. We have done some basic programming using decision control statements. We have understood why decision control statements are important in programming and how to implement in a software code. We have also discussed the void spaces are very much important whenever you are writing any decision control statement. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss about some examples based on the decision control statement. We'll try to solve daily life problems using decision control statements. So we'll do some basic programming to find the largest number or the smallest number. Also, we'll check whether the given number is even or odd. And also we can check whether the given number is positive or negative or even it is equals to 0. And we'll also write a small program to find the grade of a student. So in this case we'll take a percentage score as an input, or we can take 5 subject marks as input from the keyboard, and then we calculate the percentage score. And once we calculate the percentage score, we'll find out the grade of student, whether the student has scored distinction, first class, second class, or the pass class, or whether the student is fail. So that we'll calculate using the decision control statements in Python programming. So without wasting any time, let's get started with the programming. So as usual, we have to open ideally from Windows search bar. So I'll type ideally here and I'll open the Python programming environment. Yeah, so here it is. So this is Python shell, and I'm going to write programs in Python editor or text editor. So this is how I have opened the text editor. So before we begin or we actually start solving the basic problems, let's revise or quickly revise the basic things that we have done in yesterday's or in the last session. Okay, so if statement is done like this, if, and in bracket you have to write some condition. Not necessarily in bracket, you can write anywhere, and just some statements to execute. So it can be statement 1 or statement 2, like this. Okay, so if the condition is true, then the statements written inside this if statement will be executed. Secondly, we have understood that these void spaces are very much important in if statement or any other decision control statement. This defines that this particular statement is the part of this if statement. This kind of approach we are going to use whenever we are having a single condition and single option or single outcome to perform. But if you are having single condition with 2 options, then you have to write else statement, and else statement will not have any condition, and here it is the statement 2. So if the condition is true, the statement 1 is executed, and if the condition is false, the statement 2 will be executed. So this is how this if else statement works. But if you are having multiple conditions with multiple options, in that case we can't go for if else statement or simple if else statement. In that case we have to use different structure, that is if, then elif, and again you can write some condition here. This is condition 2, and this could, and if the condition is 2 is true, then this statement 2 will be executed. And again you can have elif and so on, multiple elif statements you can use. This is condition 3, and you can have one more statement, condition statement 3 inside that, and this is default statement or statement 4. So writing this else statement is optional in programming. Even if you do not write this thing, there is no error in the programming. And how many elif statement you will write depending upon your conditions, you can choose the number of elif statement. If you are having 4 different conditions, then if, elif, and one more elif will be there. If you are having 3 conditions like this, so this is how two if and single if can do your job. And additionally, you can write else statement if you want to have a default condition or the default option. So what happens in this case, if the condition is true, this first condition is true, then statement 1 is executed. But if this condition is false, it will go and check the second condition. So if the second condition is also not true, in that case it will go and check the third condition. Now again, if the third condition is also not true, then it will execute this else statement. Now consider that the condition number 1 is true. So if the condition number 1 is true, this will execute statement 1 and it will not check for condition 2, 3 and else while apart. So these things will be skipped if the condition 1 is true. If the condition 2 is true, so this is false, then it will check this condition, and if fortunately this condition is true, then it will skip this part. So it will not execute condition 3 and else while apart. So only one statement from statement 1, 2, 3 and this default statement will be executed. That's why it will check the first condition first, and after that, if this condition is not true, then only it will check second condition. If this condition is true, then it will not check condition 2 and 3. Okay, so this is how these things works. And now based on this knowledge, we'll write our very first program using this decision control statement, or basic example program that we are going to solve using decision control statement. We'll try to find out whether the given number is positive or not. So we are expecting positive number from the user, so we'll write some code so that user will enter a positive number or any number from the keyboard, and we'll check whether that number is positive or not. So let's do that. So I'll take a variable number is equals to, as usual we write like this, int input, because we are going to expect an integer number, so that's why int input, and we'll ask user enter a positive number. So this is how we'll instruct the user to enter a positive number, and if user enters the positive number, then we'll display you have entered the positive number, and if user enters a negative number, then we'll say that try again, you have entered the negative number, the number is not positive, or we'll just simply display the number is positive or the number is negative, like that. So in order to check this, what we can do, we can use an if statement. Now in this particular problem, there is only one condition, whether the number is greater than 0 or not. So we'll check whether number is greater than 0, that means the number is positive. So this is simple logic. If the number is greater than 0, that means the number is positive, and we'll hit enter here and print the number is positive. Okay, now here there is only one condition, but we have to again display if the number is not positive, we must display the number is negative. So that is done using this else statement. So print the number is negative. Okay, so this is how the user will display this thing, the number is negative. Now we'll save this code using Ctrl S and just say the positive number or pos.py. Any name you can give, or additionally you can also add some comments in the program. I'm not writing any comments, but you can put some comments in the program, and you have to save this by some relevant name. Secondly, the variables which you are using in the program should have the significant meaning, or it should be relevant to your program so that your code becomes more readable. Now we can run this code from the run, or I can click simply F5. So it is asking enter a positive number. So if I enter -10, it will display the number is negative. Let's run this code one more time, and this time I'll enter 15, then the number is positive. So everything is working very smoothly in this particular problem, but there is one small problem in writing code like this. So it's very simple and very small problem. So I'll tell you what exactly the problem is. So when I run this again, if I enter 0 as a number, now as you know, the 0 is not the negative number, neither it's a positive number. It's a center value between positive and negative number, but unfortunately it is displaying the negative number, which is not, the 0 is not the negative number, even it is not the positive number. It's just the center value from between positive and negative term. So this is the problem with this kind of a problem. So in order to get rid of this particular problem, even I cannot write like this, number is greater than or equals to 0. That means if I enter 0, that will show the positive number, but 0 is not the positive number. So what I can do, I can add one more condition here. So if the number is equals to 0, so this is what the condition I must add. So here I'll write the number is 0. Okay, so if I write like this, the number is 0, then it will display 0 whenever you'll enter 0 as a number. So you'll run this, and if I enter 0, then it is showing the number is 0. So this is how we can solve that particular case. So this is how the simple program can be used, and decision control statements can be used to detect whether the person is entering the positive number or whether the person is entering any kind of negative number. So it's very simple and straightforward method. Now let's do one more example. Now in this case, we'll try to find out whether the number or whatever number the user is going to enter from the keyboard, whether it's equals to the or whether it is even or odd number. So we'll write a program for checking whether number is even or not. Again, I'll take a number as input from the keyboard, and again int input, because we are expecting the integer number. So here enter any number. This is what I'll display message to the user. Then the user will enter number, and that number will be stored in num variable. Now as you know, when I say the number is even, so that number is divisible by 2. So any number which is divisible by 2 is the even number, and the number is odd if it is not divisible by 2. So we'll use this simple logic to detect whether the number is even or not, even or odd. Now how to find whether the number is divisible by 2 or not? So in mathematics and while discussing operators, we have discussed arithmetic operators, and in arithmetic operators we have used one simple operator called Modulus Operator. This is percentage symbol. This finds the remainder of integer division. So I'll take one more variable as rem equals to number modulus of 2, and which will find the remainder of this division, number divided by 2. Now the remainder will be 0 if number is even, and the remainder will be 1 if the number is odd. So simply we'll check here, if rem equals to 0, then we simply print here, print the number is even. And if this is not true, then ultimately there will be else term, and if the number is not even, that means the number is odd. Okay, so there is one spelling mistake, number is odd. So this is how we'll display the number, whether the given number is even or odd. If I enter the 0 or any other number which is divisible by 2, the remainder of that division will be 0. In that case, the number is even. And if the number whatever number you enter, its remainder is 1 or any other number, and that means that the number is odd. So again, I'll save this program. You may add some comments, and I have written the previous code, but you will create a new file, and there you will save this particular program. So I have entered here, and I enter here 8, which is clearly an even number because it is divisible by 2, and here we go, we are getting number is even. If I enter 1, In this case the number is odd. Even if I try, and here if I enter -10, again the number is even, because the -10 is also divisible by 2. Okay, so the sign is not important, whether the number is positive or negative, that's not important. The important thing is that whether the number is even or odd. Now we have successfully tested whether the number is even or odd. Now we can do some small modification in this particular program. So instead of writing like this, it's also possible to use this condition in the if statement directly. Instead of writing rem, we can simply write number modulus of 2 whether it's equals to 0 or not. So this is also we can write, and we can save some variable in case of this kind of approach. So you write here number is 5, clearly it's the odd number, and if I write number is 0. Now one more modification we can do, we can simply write like this. Okay, simply we can write like this, and let's first test this, because this is going to lead an incorrect answer, but let's just test it. So if I enter here 10, this time it is showing number is odd, because what happens here, so it will find the number modulus 2 and its remainder will be here, and any value which is not equal to 0 is true. So if I enter here any other value, let's say 10, now the 10 modulus 2 is 0, so that means false, and that's why it is executing this term. So in order to make it true, I can add a not operator here, and now this will solve my problem, or it will be the working case. Now let's run this thing. This is invalid syntax I am getting for this operator, because this is not the operator in Python. The not operator in Python looks like this thing, and I can even add the brackets. Okay, so the operator previously I used is the C language not operator. So this is the not operator in Python. So let's run this, and now enter 10. This time the number is even. So this is how we can use a simple Python program to find out whether the entered number is even or odd, and we have discussed few modifications inside the if statement. So the condition is false when the value is 0, and any other number like 2, 3, -10, -4 is true value. So here it is happening. So if number modulus 2, that this value is 0, that means this condition is false. And if we are getting 1, 2 or any other remainder here, that means that value is true. So here whenever I'll enter 10, its value will be 0. That's why we are converting to the reverse, or we are inverting that result by not, so that it will follow this thing. Okay, so this is how we can test whether the entered number is even or odd. Now we have tested whether number is even or not. We have also tested for positive or negative number. This time we'll try to find out the largest number between what are in the given number. So if I enter two numbers from the keyboard, so we'll try to find out which number is large, or the larger number. So just number 1 is equals to int input, and here I write enter, oh it's caps lock, enter a number, and again I'll take a num2 as a second variable, number 2, and again int input, enter another number. You may write anything in in this particular input function. I am writing enter a number, enter another number. Perfectly fine, no issues with this. Now simply, in order to check whether the number is larger or not, or number 1 is larger or number 2 is larger, simply we need to check whether if number 1 is greater than number 2, and we'll simply write print number 1 or simply num1 I'll write num1 is larger number. Okay, very simple code. Number 1 is larger number. And else if this is not true, that means, oh, it should be like this, print num2 is larger. Okay, so let's run this code using F5. So I'll enter 10 and the second number as 5. Now clearly number 1 is larger, so it should display number 1 is larger number. So here we go, num1 is larger number. Now I can test it, like if I enter 5 and then 10, clearly number 2 is larger, so everything is working smoothly. But there is again a small problem. What's the problem? Let's check here. If I enter here 40 and second number also 40, this time number 2 is larger, which is not the case. Both the numbers are equal. Even not number 1 and number 2 are same, and nobody is larger. But unfortunately we are getting this result which is incorrect. So that's why we need to fix this here. So here I need to write one more condition. If else if number 1 is equals to number 2, then we need to display print both the numbers are equal. Okay, so both the numbers are equal. This is how I'll display if the number 1 and number 2 are same. And here we go, if I enter 10 and again 10, then I'll get both the numbers are equal. So this is how we can solve that problem by writing like this. Now this is okay if I am having the only two numbers, so this logic is perfectly fine for two numbers. But if I am having multiple numbers, let's say 3 numbers, then how to develop logic for this? So let's try that. So instead of getting this thing, so enter number 1 and I'll write enter number 2 and something like this. Enter number 1, enter number 2, and similarly I'll take one more variable, number 3 equals to int input, and here I'll write enter number 3. So I'm expecting from user to enter number 3. So if the user is entering these numbers, number 1, number 2 and number 3, now I need to find out the largest number among these 3 numbers. So now this thing is a little bit complicated as compared to the previous case. In case of previous case we were having only 2 numbers, so the things were very much simple. So here how we can develop logic. So firstly we'll check whether number 1 is greater than number 2, this one thing, and number 1 again must be greater than number 2, sorry 3. Okay, additionally you can add some brackets in order to increase the readability of your code. Now this will make more readable. Okay, so first what will check whether the number 1 is greater than number 2, and again that number 1 must be greater than number 3 as well. If both the conditions are true, only in that case I'll write print number 1, or simply num1, number 1 is the largest. Okay, now I can't write else number 2 is largest. Instead I need to write elif statement here, and again I need to check whether number 2 is greater than number 1 and number 2 must be greater than number 3. Only in this case, only in this particular case, print num2 is the largest. Okay, only in this case I can print number 2 is the largest number. So, and what will be the final step? So final step can be simple else statement, but this will also have some problem. We'll fix that later on, but just simply write here number 3 is largest. And let's go and write this thing. So just run this code, and here if I enter 10 and then 12 and then 13, so ultimately number 3 is largest, so it is finding the result. Now if I enter here 5 then 14 and then 8, number 2 is largest, so everything is running very smoothly. But this will be having some problems. So problem number 1 is if I have 4 and 4, in this case number 3 is larger. This is one problem. Okay, now again we'll test it for, let's say, 5 then 5 and then 2. So here number 3 is largest in this case also. Okay, so this is the major problem here. Whenever any two numbers are equal, so clearly here number 1 and number 2 both are equal, and they are even the number 1 is largest and also the number 2 is largest, but unfortunately it is displaying number 3 as a largest. So I just leave this part for the students in order to fix this problem. So initially you have to write one more condition to test whether all numbers are equal. Secondly, we must check whether any two numbers are equal or not. So that logic you have to develop. So just try to come up with some better idea or better logic in order to find the largest number among these three numbers. Okay, so I'm just giving a small hint that you have to check for the equality and the problems I have displayed to you, and just you have to make sure that if both the two numbers are equal, then you have to test that number with the any third number. So firstly you can do this, so your code will be little bit complicated. Okay, so with said that, I'll start with the next assignment. Now that is finding the grades of a student. So now here we'll need multiple conditions and we'll execute all those conditions. So firstly we must have, before that you have to do one more thing. Firstly you will fix that problem, so what are problems you are facing in the last assignment. Secondly, you will also try to find out the smallest number between given two numbers and the smallest number among three numbers. So we have discussed coding for largest number, but we'll also try for the smallest number as well. Now here I'll write a code, or we have to write a code to find out the grade of a student if all subject marks are given as an input. So this is subject1 is equals to int input enter the marks of subject1. Okay, then subject2 is equals to the same thing, or I'll write here int input enter the marks of subject2. Okay, so this is how we'll take a 5 subject marks as input from the user. So I'll copy this thing and just paste it here. Oh, it's not copied, I think. And here it is 3, subject 3, subject 4, and it should be 3. And here again I'll change it to subject 3, and this is subject 4. And one more I need, so I'll simply copy this line and paste it here. So it will be a subject 5, and here we go, subject 5. Now in order to find out the percentage score, we have the formula like percentage is equals to this subject 1 plus subject 2 plus subject 3 plus subject 4 plus subject 5, and divide by 5, the simple average, because all the subjects are out of 100. So assuming that thing, all the subjects are out of 100, so finding percentage score, it's very much simple. Now additionally you can print this thing, print the percentage score of student is equals to, and I put this thing and percent. Okay, so that will be displayed, or even I can write this percentage symbol over here so that it will be more correct. So now let's run this code and first test whether these things are working. So let's say I enter 50, 50, 50 to all subjects, so ultimately the percentage will be 50. So here we go, the 50.0 as the percentage score of the student. So it is working very smoothly and very fine. Now here we have to add some condition. Now the condition is if the percentages are greater than 75, greater than or equal to 75, then the student has scored distinction. So just do that. So if percentage is greater than or equals to 75, so in this case we'll write print student, or you have just write you have scored distinction. Okay, or simply you can write distinction, you have scored distinction, or you can even write this distinction as well. So, and the second condition is that again I'll write elif here, elif the percentage is greater than equals to 60 and the percentage must be less than 75. In this case we can display print first class like this. And one more condition, elif if the percentage is greater than, let's say greater than equals to 50 and the percentage is less than 60. In this case there is second class, so print, you can write here second class. And next elif if the percentage are greater than equals to 40 and the percentages are less than 50, in this case we can display the pass class. Okay, so here instead of semicolon it should be colon. Oh, again the same thing happened. Print, you can simply display pass, and else you have to display the default condition. If the percentage are below 40, that means you are fail. Okay, so this is how we'll complete this simple code, and you can run this code. So if I enter here 55, clearly it is the for all subjects. If I enter 55, then let's say 47, and then I can add 65, and let's say subject 5 is again 57. So it should be in second class because the percentage score will be 55.8, so it's in the second class. So this is how this code will work, and for all the conditions it will work very smoothly. So this is how we can test all these things. So one small change I'll suggest in this particular thing. For example, if I run this code and if I enter first subject as 25, so clearly it is less than 40, so fail. But I have very good marks in other subjects like 90, 95, 98, like this. Here the percentage score is 79.4 and you have scored distinction. This is what I'm getting, but in reality I am fail because I have 25 marks in one particular subject. So this check you have to establish over here in this particular thing. Firstly, we'll check whether any subject is less than 40 or not. If it is less than 40, then you have to display fail as a result. So that simple modification you will do in a program. So I'll also leave this thing towards the student, that you will just find out this percentage score. Secondly, we'll check whether any subject is less than 40, and if there any other subject which is having less than 40, then you have to display you are fail. Okay, So this is all about how we can write some basic programs using decision control statement, or how decision control statement can be utilized in our daily life problems, or how we can solve some problem statements using decision control statement. In the next lecture, we'll discuss about the looping structures in Python like while loop, for loop in detail. So stay connected with me, and thanks for watching.